Welcome. Hi, I'm Michael Voss, the Dean of Career and Technical Education at Mesa Community College. This is a Dean's Update from summer 2018, also known as Do You Know What Your Dean Did Last Summer? Sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and let's get started. First off, I took some much-needed rest and relaxation. My family went on a trip to the Grand Canyon and did some camping. I took the kids out to a Diamondbacks game with their new cousins who moved to town. So we now have some family in town. That's awesome. Me and my wife went to see Elton John in Las Vegas on his very last show at Caesars Palace. Like we often do in Albuquerque, we went for high tea, and so that's a lot of fun. And for the first time ever, we went to this place called Meow Wolf in Santa Fe, which is sort of like a hip, artistic, living, fun museum experience. You really can't even describe it. And then last but not least, took plenty of time to recharge my spidey senses. And as you can see there, my wife took a lot of joy in putting a Snapchat spider on my shirt. All right. As always, I'd like to review our vision and mission for CTE. So our CTE programs lead to the attainment of technical and professional skills that provide a well-trained workforce aligned with regional economic growth. Our mission is to provide CTE that students recommend to their family and friends, that faculty lead with a spirit of excellence and innovation, that employers support through their commitment of time, resources, training opportunities, and a hiring preference for our graduates. And finally, community members believe is a good return on investment. So I've updated my strategic plan for this upcoming year, and I've organized it into what I think is the highest priorities. So the number one thing that I see for us right now is not really a strictly academic affairs issue, it's a college issue. And we really need to improve the interest to enrollment pipeline. So from the time that students express interest to all the process steps involved in getting them enrolled, whether that's getting back to students in a timely fashion or navigating them through the application, a new student orientation, AccuPlacer, all those things, I see that right now as our biggest barrier to increasing enrollment. And we need to have all hands on deck to help figure that out. We need to launch the IT Institute. We'll talk more about that later on. We need to launch the Advanced Manufacturing Center. That'll be in the TC50 building. We'll talk about that later on. We're going to do some renovations to TC50. And I also have TC52, which is the welding lab, on my radar of things that we need to start figuring out how that's going to work down the road. Of course, still focused on increasing completion. We want to get to a place where all of our certificates and degrees are graduating 10 or more students at a minimum. Work on building out micro-credential crosswalks. So if industry values it and they've identified it, we need to crosswalk our courses to identify that as a completer as well. Work on the apprenticeship model and build out the National Career Pathway Framework for dual credit so that it's a seamless pathway from 9th grade all the way to completion of the community college system. We need to improve marketing. Specifically, I'm focused on program pages. There are some updates coming this fall. Some of them have already happened, but more needs to happen. Things where we're doing great, but it's still part of our strategic plan. Labor market analytics. People come to us now for data. So we have kind of cornered the market with Gray Associates and the way we use other systems. So that's wonderful. I feel like we're really strong in making data-informed decisions, especially with our use of Tableau. We've done a lot of work on schedule management and performance, and that's making a difference. We still need to shift more of our face-to-face instruction to online modality where we can and be more active in the intersession. And I think we're starting to do a good job with program planning and review, although we need to get that turned around a little bit faster, but overall I'd say that's an area of strength now. Areas where we need to develop is some employability skills. Right now we're all taking our own approach and coming to a standardization of what things in general can employers expect from a Mesa Community College graduate in terms of employability skills. And we're working on it, but program fundraising, these facilities aren't going to fix themselves. So I need to work with a lot more people and get more hands on deck in understanding how do we have conversations, crucial conversations with our employer partners to build public-private partnership fundraising so that we can build the facilities that we need and get the equipment we need, incentivize scholarships for students to attend our programs, and even support endowed faculty positions. And last but not least, there's other things that we do support and we want to continue to support. So the Hispanic Serving Institute initiative, we need to be fully supportive of that and continue doing good work there. And of course, the Guided Pathways to Success initiative. Okay, so let's dive right into it. So we have a customer relationship management CRM software, and that is basically the software where we take the interested student leads that we have, the prospective student leads, and track them all the way from they're interested to they've applied, they've taken their tests, they're matriculated, and now they're registered, and it even follows them all the way through completion. So right now we use Microsoft Dynamics 365 for that. There's little pockets of excellence out there, but there's more that needs to be done. So I'm encouraging academic affairs to get engaged, especially in any place where we have new students who show up to an office and are potentially interested in a program. They want more information, and that happens in a lot of our academic units. So I'm going to be looking for people to get more engaged with the software so that we can be responsive to the leads for our respective disciplines. And that's really what it's about. So the way the system works currently is it classifies students into the 16 federal career clusters. That's a decision that was made by district. I'm going to advocate to make that more granular, but for right now, that's what we have. Okay. And we need to go into that to cultivate that enrollment pipeline to convert those interested prospects to become enrolled students, and we have to do that in a pretty timely fashion. And finally, once we get enough users in it, it's kind of a it's a rich software, so there's a lot of features. And as we get more users into it, we'll start sharing some best practices about how to set up dashboards and follow up with people so that we can increase our collective knowledge. IT Institute update. Here we go. So the IT Institute will be initially located on the second floor of Downtown Center, and it supports the City of Mesa's development of an innovation district, which will position MCC as a lead for training in the IT sector. Linda Collins has done an amazing job. Send her an email, give her a hug. She's done such a good job, and her entire team this summer, they were on some contracts to really get some things happening. They've done some heavy lifting with program development in programs that are emerging, and so they built out blockchain. They're working on AppleCare Technician, the people who repair iPads and iPhones, and further getting ready for the second year iteration of Everyone Can Code. Heavily involved, this team has been in the build out of the design and the equipment. And also big kudos to the IT team, Tony and Chrissy, Alvin, all of them really pitching together to try to take that facility and make it something that'll shine for our students as an initial landing spot. And then they've also been very involved in the marketing. Just because we put courses on the books doesn't mean that people already go there, especially when we had to add them late and we had already built out for fall. So they've really been pushing marketing enrollment, and hopefully we'll have some sections that make and people can get started out there. So that's exciting. We are in the process of hiring an IT Institute director, and so I'm principally charged with making that happen. And so I'm working through that PAF process right now. Speaking of that, industry partnership guiding team stuff. So this institute model, don't get confused with the larger industry institute model that the district's been talking about. I also serve on the guiding team for that institute model that's being developed and discussed at district. So kind of two separate things, but hopefully the stewardship that Mesa will provide the IT sector, certainly in the East Valley and hopefully beyond, is provides a nice pilot for potentially what that could look like. Okay. Now, speaking of partnerships, we had a lot of conversations with different partners for different reasons over the summer. So I've been out and about, or they've been coming on campus. So a lot of conversations with heavy equipment companies, Empire and Road Machinery and Komatsu. In the industrial sector, Honeywell Aerospace, who does work on refurbishing engines and stuff like that for aircraft. Had a conversation with Mindshift kind of about blockchain training needs. Phoenix Logistics is more aerospace type stuff. So things are really in hot demand. Obviously the IT skills, but also CNC manufacturing skills, welding skills. People with mechanical aptitude are in high demand right now, and all these employers are competing for the same limited workforce labor pool. The Gilbert Town of Gilbert Economic Development Office has been working with us a little bit more on the labor market data in response to their town. And even Gateway Bank, which is a local community bank, has approached us about some of the unique skill sets they need for a community bank finance sector. So a lot of good conversations happening out there. So as much as you can, I'll be trying to go out to faculty in these areas, and the next step is faculty engagement, so that we can go tour their space and hear from their needs, and perhaps do some tours here on campus as well. Another big initiative that I've been working on for a while, that a bunch of us have been working on, is the Arizona Advanced Industrial Technology Corridor. Leah Palmer has been providing just amazing stewardship in this area. So on the right-hand side, what you see is sort of a heat map of sorts showing all the advanced technology employers really in this manufacturing space and where they reside. So there really is this concentration. And again, all these employers are really, they're competing for a very tight labor market right now. So here's some things that the state, Arizona Commerce Authority, has granted the corridor, and here's our part of it. Mesa Community College, on behalf of the district, received $643,000 to really buy equipment tied to train these skills. And we also went after some Prop 301 money to buy some matching equipment. It's over $1 million worth of equipment to update the training capabilities. Need some an additional faculty, so we put in for that. And then money for renovating the TC50 lab building. So we'll take a look at that and how that's going to work out. But that's going to hopefully create a state-of-the-art modern industrial maintenance facility that will really be a showcase item that the TC building can start to rally around. So speaking of that, here's kind of a big map. It's confusing, a lot of stuff going on here, but kind of what the TC building looks like now and what we're proposing. And so let's go through that. So we're going to start with, here they are, current and proposed. So the first little circle here is where industrial maintenance and automation and robotics lives now. They have a pretty small footprint of these 2 rooms. They need a bigger footprint, at least double. And so we've identified these rooms over here. Interesting about these rooms, when this building was built in circa 1985, that middle room there, the TC408, was built as a film projection room, and there's little glass windows that point towards the exterior corners of each room, where you could project film through glass windows. And that's how it was done back then, before you had PowerPoint and stuff like that. So that middle room was actually a video projection room. So the idea is to take the middle room and knock down all the walls and make a big space. And that'll be the space for this over $1 million worth of modern industrial maintenance, like hydraulic and electronics trainers and other things like that will go. So it'll be beautiful equipment, but we need space for it. So that'll go there. And then that's going to cause some displacement. So you have childhood development that has a lecture room, and we got to find a place for that to go. And we're thinking that perhaps it could go in TC308 because it keeps it in fairly close proximity to the child development lab down there in TC314. Well, then that causes fashion to get displaced, right? So fashion's got to go somewhere. And we're thinking that perhaps fashion can go back up in close proximity to the other fashion classroom. So move it up there to TC1W and kind of give the fashion program an identity. As we start moving these other disciplines, we're scoping in enough money so that we can provide a really good refresh and do the educational specs so that hopefully everyone's getting in a more optimal space. All right, well then in that room, we had this guitar building class predominantly and a lecture space. And down in 407, there's also a electronics lab that needs to get moved. So we're thinking about taking that block of rooms that also had the student computer lab and making that the electronics program identity and refurbing that. Not sure totally what's going to happen with the guitar class, to be honest with you. Ideally, I'd want a maker space for that, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But that little bank of rooms, I'd like to slate for the electronics program refresh. And then, like I said, the student computer lab would get displaced, and so the thought is perhaps move that across the hall. There might be some other options, but initially we got to make room for electronics there. And then, of course, there's these two lecture rooms over here that were kind of more general purpose, and they got to go someplace. So make that a general lecture room. And in general, one thing that we need to think about with all of our disciplines is how do we think about our curriculum design and get things that are pure theory to just be theory credits and lab to just be lab credits, because anything that's a pure theory credit, we should be starting to make the move to make that an online offering. And then just ask students to come in to the on-campus when they have to do high-quality lab work, right? So I'm convinced that with the technology we have today, we can provide an equivalent or better education online when it's pure theory. You get to engineer not only the curriculum, but the delivery to make sure that the content is consistently covered the same way every time. So a lot of stuff to sort of think about there. Now, let's get into some other stuff. Future thoughts, right? That's just like phase one. So what happens with the rest of the building over time? We need to educational spec everything. So there's a education specification process when you start moving programs around so that you can really clearly understand the pedagogy involved and the equipment and space needs to design it optimally before you turn that over to architects and stuff like that. So we're going to work through that with all the programs we just talked about previously. So that's industrial maintenance technology, education and child development, fashion, and electronics. Right? Those really need to get looked at. Make sure we get that build out of the building right. Well, there's some other things I've been thinking about. One, the automotive program is just undersized. I've heard it since I got here, and I believe it to be true. They're truly undersized. There's no scenario here where I can envision the automotive program reaching its full potential in the space that it has. So it's got to come up and out, because it needs about 4 times the space that it has, right? So we've started benchmarking against the top 25 community college automotive programs in the country in terms of completers, and they just have more space than we do. We got a great program, but we need more space. About 4 times would be a good start point. I don't know where that's going to be, but we did start talking to the automotive industry and that community to get on the radar and start figuring out how to, where would it go? Where would we get the money? Because it wouldn't be cheap to do that. But if that moves out, that creates some open space that we can use to increase manufacturing, increase 3D printing. There's some high demand programs based on the Grays data, like electrician and HVAC, that we should, if we don't add it, someone in the East Valley needs to add it, because way underserved in those areas. And also a maker space. So some of these ancillary things that don't relate totally to the course competencies, like the woodworking component of guitar build, having a maker space that allows for some creative, some creative course offerings like that would be ideal. But we need to have well-designed facilities for that are kind of like these flex maker spaces. So I'm thinking about that. It's on my radar. Another area that's on my radar is, we're going to build a new greenhouse. It'd be nice to get the urban horticulture lectures in closer proximity to the greenhouse. So eventually that would need to come out. And then veterinary technology, I tell you what, that's a big challenge. One, my heart goes out to the students and the faculty there. The lab they have off of Southern is super tight. It's remote from campus, and they really don't have much opportunity for growth. I'm having some conversations with some other educational partners to talk about space sharing, to see if we can find a more optimal situation for them. But that'll take some time. And if we could free that up, eventually that creates some additional opportunity for future growth and expansion. We're doing some work on grants. If you worked with me in the past, you know that I'm not a huge fan of grants. I'll make an exception if the grants really serve our needs well. So this is one. ASU called us to see if we would partner with them on the Maricopa County Industrial Development Authority grant, and our part would be to develop a medical technology manufacturing program. Well, it turns out the city of Mesa already convened an advisory on that about a year ago, and I was in attendance. There's about 20 employers at the time who really expressed a need for workforce development, and so the time is sort of ripe for this. We're looking at around $200,000 to do this work, since a lot of the research and stuff is done. That part won't be too hard. We have a lot of the courses already in the bank, so you'd have to develop a few. We did reach out to one community college that's already stood this up in the Austin area. Austin, Texas is a few years ahead of us on this, so we understand some of the details involved. ASU wants to get out of it, transfer pathways, so that's fine. Like I said, we've got courses in the course bank. We'd have to create a few new courses. But most of the money would go towards any needed capital equipment, supplies, materials, and then hopefully finding a space to, create the lab facilities needed, if needed, right? I think a lot of our programs already serve this area well. So we may or may not need to stand up a lab, but we're prepared to maybe take a look at that. And then, of course, got to recruit, marketing, recruitment strategies. So that's kind of that deal. It's not a done deal yet, but it's in the works. It's looking real promising. Speaking of other facilities, the welding program is on my radar as well. Bob Holmes came to me. When I came in, they've had this drawing done for years, and they need to get some traction on it. The area in red represents the current physical plant facilities. at least the space allocation for welding. Welding serves around 200 students per term. It's basically booked Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to late in the evening. There are no more opportunities to add sections. It fills right away. Everything fills right away. So we got to get them some more space so they can realize their potential. Doubling it would be a good start, and that's kind of what you see here, doubling it and creating some exterior spaces. And so I'm starting to think about how can we, either get the Prop 301 money or, find some grants or some partnerships. But along with the TC building, TC50, the welding, is a high priority for me to start figuring out how to move the needle on this year. Program pages, right? So to me, a lot of the marketing happens there. There's a pretty major update. If you haven't looked at your program pages, you should do so. That happened on August 8th. So they are trying to get the pathway maps from Guided Pathways up there. So that's wonderful, getting that information up there, and we're using the existing framework that we have for now. They want to make it a little simpler to streamline the navigation and just some general cleanup. The next step is the integration of Economic Modeling Specialist Incorporated Career Coach, which I've been an advocate for some time. And that will enhance career exploration. It'll tie career exploration to the actual programs that we offer and provide a richer set of salary data and jobs data for prospective students looking at our programs who want to know the ROI before they commit to apply to our school. So more to come there. The Gray Associates Program Evaluation System that I spoke of previously, good news there. It looks like it's going to be a one-year contract for us, and because of our heavy usage of it and the value that we provided, looks like district's going to pick up the cost of that, so we won't have to incur the cost of this system in the next year. And hopefully that means that they're going to go to a full district-wide implementation. We've already done some pilot work to pull the Gray's data into Tableau, which is awesome for data visualization. And as we renew the contract, as district picks it up, we'd be looking at getting a real-time feed update so that Tableau is always updated with what's in Gray's. So that's super nice for a data guy like me. Also, we launched the inaugural East Valley Workforce Steering Committee. So based on some of the work I've been doing with Gray's and getting it out to the economic development offices and the different industry teams out working in, especially in the manufacturing sector, I made a connection with Town of Gilbert. And we really discussed, holistically, what are the major things that need to shift in order to provide optimal training alignment to really address the workforce needs. We also looped in the City of Mesa Economic Development Office, and so there's kind of this core team looking at this holistically. So we decided to convene a meeting of all the East Valley Economic Development offices, all of my counterparts from the community colleges in the East Valley, and my counterparts at the high school CT director level, to start a conversation. The initial topics included looking at a new model called the Next Generation Sector Partnership Model, which really puts industry at the center. And all of us, whether we're education or economic development or policy, on the margins in listening mode, so that industry can speak clearly what it is that, what are their pain points and how can we collectively serve that sector. So we're looking at that model. I did present Gray Associates program by Market Matrix, which was super cool. We were able to load in all the East Valley cities, look at all the possible programs you could offer, and then provide sort of a rank order of really what is the best possible training programs that we should stand up that have the student demand, the labor market demand, there's not too much competition, and it's a good fit for the community college mission. We discussed labor market systems currently in use for decision making and positioned MESA to really provide stewardship around the best labor market data for the group to make decision making. We also presented some national benchmarking data showing how the top 25 programs across the country churn out completers relative to how many completers are produced in the East Valley system. So kind of a really interesting approach. Now, scheduling performance. Spring 2018, I think overall was pretty good. Enrollment was down for CTE, but not as far down as the rest of the college. We did add quite a few sections, so that was good. So we were getting more capacity there. We did have some drops in section size and fill rate a little bit, but our cancellation rate went down. So all in all, I think that's a win. And here's the specifics on it, so you can kind of see what's happening with our trend line. We've almost got enrollment stabilized here in CTE. It was really close. And then we got section count for the first time ever in 5 years going positive. Section size really hasn't changed too much, so that's good. And then capacity, a little bit of a dip, but still not as low as previous levels. And then really good news, getting a nice trend here on getting that course cancellation rate down. So very happy about that. We want to get that less than 5%, hopefully 0. Speaking of scheduling, Ad Astra is the system I've been pushing for us to do predictive analytics, and we're still working on that, but I've recently learned that we need to explore what we have already, and that's CollegeNet. And I knew about 25 Live and X25. Apparently there's a scheduled 25 that we have and nobody's really been using, so we're going to take a little look at that, make sure that's not going to meet our needs before getting back to deciding whether or not Ad Astra is the right tool to do predictive analytics and give us better insights as far as which courses we should be offering. Looked at some other softwares as well, so summertime is when I do a lot of sharpening my saw, making sure I'm up to date. So I took a look at Civitas Learning and EAB Navigate. Those are both what you would call student success software, and something that eventually I would think that the district would need to support guided pathways. I did learn that if I were making the decision, I would probably choose Civitas because Civitas is used by all of our university partners right now, so they kind of have local market share. I would go with the masses on that one. And then I also took a look at Portfolium. Portfolium is predominantly an assessment software, a deep assessment software that has deep integration with Canvas, and it really gets you down to some data visualization at the course competency level, which if I were an instructor, I would think it would totally rock and I would love it. So more to come on that. We'll see. District seems to have some interest as well because I'll be attending a district level discussion of Portfolium in the not too distant future. It also has some redundant career, it's called Portfolium because the students capture their portfolio of student experiences, which they could then market to a prospective employer. Not really looking forward to do that right now. Career Coach is really the system that I want a little bit more, and we have some other ones. Maricopa Career Link, which is a Nacelink product, but we'll see. Like I said, I do sharpen my saw in the summer, so I went to a bunch of things. I went to the National CTE Conference, which happened to be in Glendale. Probably should be retitled the Perkins Conference because it just talked about Perkins funding for the most part. Went to Western Pathways in Salt Lake for a day or two, and that one is really high-level governmental policy impacting career technical education. I went to the League for Innovation Community College Learning Summit. That was an assessment workshop here in Phoenix. Boy, faculty should go to that in the future. It would have been super useful for faculty. It really validated my understanding of how course level, program level institutional assessment works, so it was comforting to hear that. They had PhD level assessment trainers. It was fantastic. And then the Association for Career Technical of Arizona, the ACTEAZ, they have a summer conference. They actually have some quarterly convenings, but every faculty in CT, as much as possible, if you can make the time for it, it's worth going. We have some governing board members who monitor our engagement down there, and if we could have a strong presence from Mesa, it would really help us quite a bit. So I think we had a good showing from Maricopa overall, but I'd love to see more faculty there next year. Finally, not only do I sharpen my own saw, but I do take the time to sharpen the saws of other. And one of the things that I do, I updated my my tagline on my signature. So often people ask, what do you do, right? And they say, well, I'm the dean, or I'm a faculty. And really, what I do is not that title that they give me. What I do is I take very complex and overwhelming things in higher education, and I build capacity in others so that we can address the challenges of today in ways that increase student access and improve their outcomes so they have just a better opportunity for tomorrow. That is what I do in my role as dean. And so I had some coachees I've been working with. Two requested me through the District Leadership Development Program. One I was asked to take on as a leadership remediation project, and then another person reached out to me locally just as a professional growth and development opportunity. So I am available for that, and so don't hesitate to ask. All you have to do is ask sometimes, and occasionally you make a connection that's helpful. So I see that as part of my role. Okay, and then the last update I have is about the Virtual Incident Command Center. This one here has had some financial challenges. It does provide some great value. We got one additional FEMA grant. It's a pretty large one that has been received. We're a sub-recipient on it, and that will fund operations through till whenever the contract's done, but not later than the end of spring 2019. So we're going to start, make sure that we make good on fulfilling that, all the deliverables with that grant, but plan accordingly with the other services and deliverables that we have there. And then we'll figure out what to do with that space. So that's what's happening there. So here we are, and it's time to go back to school. Summer's over, fall is about to begin. Brace yourself, it's going to be a wild ride. So that's my daughter Allison and my son Adam. And Allison just got shiny new braces, so brace yourself. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a shout, email, phone call, reach out to Joy or Brianna. I'd love to know what's going on in your areas. Invite me to your advisory meetings. Invite me to your faculty meetings. I like to be out and about, seeing what's going on in our college and figuring out how I can help you do what it is that you do so well. Thank you, and have a great day.